All right, so some things I learned. Roasting coffee is really hard.
Så.
I'm hoping for most points in the creativity realm of things.
Y'all ready for this?
Hello, and welcome to the Barista League Online. I'm your host, Sierra. Today is the final round and the last chance for our competitors to be scoring those points before we crown ourselves our very first The Barista League Online champion. At the end of the last challenge, we had Mimo coming in first place with 43 points, followed closely by Anne with 40 points and Kat with 35. With 30 points still up for grabs, anything could happen. So how exactly does this round work? Pretty simple. We send each of our competitors a mystery green coffee, which they will first have to roast on an Ikawa Pro V3 sample roaster. But, and here's the catch, they then have to build their own DIY roaster from scratch and then roast the coffee in it. And how exactly are we going to score these coffees, you ask? Well, with some help from the owner of Mother Tongue Coffee in Oakland, California, founder of She's the Roaster, and 2019 US Cup Tasting Champion, Jen Apodaca.
Hey world, it's Jen Apodaca.
So after the competitors roast their coffee, they will then pack up the samples in coated bags and send them off to Jen for judging.
I am super excited because all week I've been receiving packets like this in the mail.
Thanks, Jen. We'll check back in with you later to see how each competitor is doing. But for now, let's get roasting. Earlier this week, the wonderful folks at Ikawa sent each of our competitors a roaster for use in completing this challenge.
Just doing my home workout.
It's so beautiful.
Check it out. It's so sick. I don't want to give it back.
Thank you, Ikawa.
Without knowing any information about this green coffee, the competitors now have to decide how they want to roast it. They can either choose to use one of the hundreds of online roast profiles on Ikawa's library, or they can choose to create their own. Now, some of the competitors are actually roasters in their day job, so they might have a little advantage going on here.
Round 3 is roasting, which I'm feeling pretty good about.
Probably the one challenge I kind of know what I'm talking about.
And some, not so much. To level the playing field, we decided to pair each of our competitors up with a mentor to give them a little bit of a boost.
I've never roasted coffee in my life before this, and I never actually thought I would ever. So I'm super stoked about this. My mentor was Miles. She works on the West Coast with Ikawa, and she was the greatest teacher in the world.
I don't really have any roasting experience, so my mentor was Sonja.
The first minutes inside the roaster is like what is called like the drying phase, and then the coffee starts to be like yellow and brownish, and then we have the first crack.
I work with Dale Harris as my mentor, the Barista Champion of 2017.
Generally, it's about making sure that time between first and second crack, normally if you keep that time pretty short, a very quick rise in temperature that then stops, then you will maximize acidity, but you'll lose some body. If you stretch that out, so again, reaching the same end temperature, but over a longer time, you have more time to pull sweetness from the coffee, more mild reactions that are changing the coffee, maybe destroying some of the compounds that lead to acidity, but you're creating compounds, more complex sweetness, more depth of body that can balance the cup a little bit.
But it's the method, the drying, and then the yellow, the Meister, and then the first crack, and then the development. So it's like those 3 steps that you have to take.
Before we go on, we would like to give a huge shout out to all of our mentors, Sonia Grant, Dale Harris, Tim Williams, Lem Butler, Smayah Uwajeneza, Alexandru Nicolae, Meister, and Owen Miles. Thank you all for taking the time to support our competitors from afar. Okay, so let's see how they go. Stephen is the head roaster of Bailey's Coffee in Belfast, so he should know what he's doing.
Again, I wanted to sort of have a similar style to what I would roast at home. And I'll get that off to our wonderful judge.
Ikawa Roast G had a really lovely floral character.
It might not look the most even of roasts, but generally, like looking at the beans, they all seem pretty well developed. little lighter ones, but again, I'm pretty confident that in terms of development, it's not going to be too grassy.
It also self-broke, which is a sign of being light roasted. However, it didn't really have any underdeveloped qualities.
It's going to be developed enough that it'll cup well, and hopefully bring out more of the acidity, more of the sweetness.
There was cherry blossoms, there was a beautiful lemon. The acidity was sparkling and present, not overwhelming. And there was also this really cool marzipan flavor, which is a complex flavor note of like almond butter and sugar. So I quite liked it.
Well done, Stephen.
Jen, my judge. Jen, this is for you.
Juicy orange and then a bitter walnut, lots of chocolate, and sort of a cinnamon flavor as well in the background, which made it very sweet.
Now let's check in on one of our novice roasters, Demi, to see how she fared.
So we definitely need to take those green beans and turn them into a brown ones, right?
That's the goal, yeah. As long as I do that, it's fine.
Roast A was really lovely. On the nose, there were a lot of floral qualities. It was very delicious. Lots of orange. It had a big body, raisin and fig. I really loved it. There was a bit of a dry finish, but it also had this really lovely rose petal quality, which I thought really made it stand out.
Meanwhile, Nicolae's package still hasn't made it to Bolivia. So we enlisted the help of 2017 World Barista Champion, Dale Harris.
How are things going?
I don't have the green coffee because I think that you will roast my coffee.
Yeah, so I have half your green
the-
coffee here. I
Yeah.
have 150 grams, and in your parcel you'll have another 150 grams to do your kitchen roast. Most people aim for sweetness, right? It's what everyone talks about. Everyone's more sweetness, higher sweetness.
We can try to mix that and use more acidity.
There's lots of sort of cinnamon and orange on the nose and in the cup. There was lots of vanilla and like Coca-Cola. It was nutty, some good honey notes. Almost like root beer, actually. I don't know if they have that everywhere. Maybe it's an American thing, but it has like a little bit of cola and anise, I guess you could say. And it had a little slightly dry finish.
Now, before we reveal what our competitors came up with for their DIY roasters, we would like to take this chance to thank our video sponsor.
This video is brought to you by Pacific Foods Barista Series. One of our favorite events that we've ever done was the Flavor Wheel Feud in Boston in 2019. When we first went to Pacific Foods with the idea to do a family feud style game show, they let us go totally crazy with the concept. Invite the best people and have this crazy party that's been one of the most popular events that we've ever done. So thank you so much Pacific Foods for not only making delicious non-dairy drinks, but for also being such an amazing supporter of the Barista League.
Okay, back to the action. Now, I don't know about you, but this is probably the bit that's got me fired up the most. Let's check out our roasters' crazy inventions.
I'm very excited because I get to build my own roaster now.
I need air, I need space, and I need heat.
It seems two of our competitors went with pre-existing equipment to roast their coffees.
I'm going to keep it pretty simple. I'm using a stainless steel saucepan.
I am going to roast coffee in a do-it-yourself way using a Rorley Pop. It's a vintage popcorn machine.
I'm going to use a meat thermometer to kind of gauge the temperature and 2 mesh strainers to eventually cool and transfer.
Thank you to my mentor, Lem, for suggesting a popcorn popper as a roaster.
So first things first, I'm going to start my stove at a low to medium temperature.
You start roasting.
For this, y'all ready for this?
Meanwhile, Demi, Kat, Stephen, and Mimo all seem to have taken similar inspiration from a classical drum roaster.
This is the prototype roaster that I came up with when I was talking with my mentor, Meister.
One thing that I have been really intrigued by, there's a company that sells spit roasters that you attach. It's like an attachment for a barbecue grill that you just turn a spit over an open flame. Some kind of a rotisserie would be so baller.
Basically, I want to try and build an actual roaster, like a double-barreled coffee roaster.
So what we're gonna do today is basically create a drum roaster using recycled items like 2 tin cans that I've beaten holes out of, a piece of tin foil that I used on a sandwich earlier, but you know, because it's gonna keep it all together. A piece of metal wire, so then basically we're gonna be jump roping it over the fire.
So what I've done is I've taken a standard saucepan. I have drilled a few holes in the back of it.
For the inside barrel, what works better than a can of beans? I mean, we've all been eating plenty of beans these days. A can of beans is easy to come by.
Again, I'm still not 100% sure what the coffee is or how it's going to react. Also, I don't know if this is actually going to work.
This is what I need to do. Figure out how to make this go in here.
Merry Christmas.
It was so well thought out at the start. It's going to be so easy. It's going to work so well.
It worked!
There's smoke. Yeah, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna do this. It's time to go with plan B.
And then we're gonna wrap it like a burrito, making sure that, you know, it's secure, but the holes are still exposed.
This is a good starting point. Let's get her in there. Let's do it.
Nicolae and Anne have come up with really innovative ways of roasting their coffee. Good on Nicolae for wearing some protective wear too. A wise choice.
I will use some chemics like a coffee roaster and a vacuum cleaner to generate movement.
So this is what I come up with. So that actually just 2 of the salad bowl stick together.
When you are roasting, you have to move all the time the coffee beans.
I'm just lucky because pretty much I got things around my house. It's a part of being Kiwi, which I love of DIY.
The vacuum cleaner inside the chemics to move the coffee beans inside with gas burner.
The whole movement of you using your wrist to moving around, it's very tiring. So I add a little bit piece of steel here, so keep it a bit more reflect. So where did I find the piece of steel? Cut it out for my own and saw.
Put a little bit of ice in that bowl.
So then the next development was to build the frame to control that with the little coffee in it, when it start adding weight. So I start making a hook. You can hook the head of the roaster in here, and you give it a spin at the beginning.
I guess it's time to roast.
So you want to keep the coffee moving.
I have no idea how long this roast is actually going to take.
Oh no, fuck!
Sorry, Jen, in advance if this tastes absolutely terrible. It is actually working. I didn't hear first crack, but it's pretty well, it's dark.
So, looking at DIY Roast G, we can see it's darker than maybe some of our Ikawa roasts are. However, in the cup, DIY Roast G tasted a lot like a smoked beef bouillon, salty, savory. little bit of carbon. It also had a very thin body. So although by looks, it looks really great, you know, in the cup, it didn't perform as well.
I mean, I feel pretty good about it, all things considered.
DIY Roast A was a lot of lemon and cherry, which is great, it's fantastic. It had a dry finish, and it even had sort of a cranberry.
Greetings from South Philadelphia, where we cool roasted coffee on our roof while it's raining. You kind of see there's a little bit of unevenness. Okay, maybe a lot.
There is a bit of carbon in the cup, and it tasted like 1998. It tasted like the coffee that I worked in a coffee shop in 1998. It was very dark and smoky, and this coffee brought me right back there. So thank you, DIY Roast C. Many of these are a roast defect called facing, which is when the flat part of the bean, it becomes charred, it is brown, and then it is black and shiny. There she is, that's facing. Thank you for the time travel trip.
Exactly 40 grams. My meat-up bean bag. So here, my DIY batch.
It had a really dynamic acidity, and it was complemented with this really great like chocolate candy bar. It was super sweet. The acidity was present. It was super balanced. Lots of dried fruit, floral, chocolate nuts. Pretty much had like everything. It was super consistent. There was really no carbon, and there was like this really big, heavy body. So great job. Yeah, this is a really good roast.
I'm hoping for most points in the creativity realm of things.
Like it's starting to develop.
And then how much longer after that?
Whoops. Some of these beans are pretty charred.
I think that maybe they needed to have a little bit more control. You can see it is pretty mottled. So mottled meaning many colors, but there was a pretty good acidity. So, you know, that was nice.
Fuck, it's stuck. God bless America. Did you hear that, Pierce? Here we go. Here we go. This is what we got. We got a good old medium roasted coffee. All right, so some things I learned. Roasting coffee is really hard.
DIY Roast E was really nice. There was the chewiness and the nuttiness, the chocolate, there was peach, orange, lemon, all the great flavors that we want to taste. I even put a little star next to this one in my notes. It is darker than our Ikawa roasts, but it's pretty evenly roasted, which is fantastic. There's one dark bean there. Obviously didn't make it into my cup, which is good for this roaster. But yeah, I really enjoyed E.
It's really hard to get an even roast. I kind of met in halfway with Len's idea. I didn't get an air popper, instead I got a whirly pop, and maybe the air popper would have been a better idea.
When I first saw this coffee, I was afraid it might break my grinder. So see how light that is? Now, it did not break my grinder, so thank you for not breaking my grinder. But it is underdeveloped, so, you know, although it is palatable, it is pretty one-flavored, so. Lemon, peach, and orange. Really great consistency. Nice job. Impressed.
If you told me at the start of the show that you could roast coffee with a popcorn popper, I just can't even believe that half of those roasters even worked. Thank you so much to Jen Apodaca once again for tasting and scoring all of those wild roasts. Well, that's it for round 3. And it is my pleasure to present to you the first ever champion of the Barista League Online, which is... Gotcha! Cat's not quite out of the bag yet. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, for the finale, where we crown our first ever Barista League Online champion. Make sure you click the subscribe button below, follow us on Instagram, all the works, and also let us know in the comments who you think is gonna go on our Barista League Mystery Coffee vacation. Now, next week's finale is going to be pretty special, so make sure you tune in. Once again, I'm your host, Sierra. See you next week.
Kendra out.